Alright, MadPap. I've been waiting for this one. I'm just gonna put this right here. There you go, perfect. Now with the conversation we had about Brady and Caddy, you might remember that I said that something needs to be thrown onto my face in order for me to actually ship something that's not canonical or at least hinted at. So you might be wondering, Ryan, why is this one on the top? This is where I'm gonna bring back Papiton as a subject because I feel like it makes it just a little easier to understand why I like this one more. I don't want to start beef, they're all great, but this is the propaganda tier and by God am I going to spread it now. So on the surface, these two never interacted with each other, don't have much anything in common, right? So why on earth are you shipping these two together? Well, the thing that makes this interesting is that these two actually start from a very similar place. Both of them are created by Alphys as a robot, right? So they both have a body that was created or found by Alphys. I'm not sure if the consensus is that the Alphys made the Mew Mew doll or if she just found it in the dumpster, but either way, she's the reason why it exists in the first place. And so these two already have in common that they're both possessing a somewhat robot doll kind of body as like ghosts because they need to do that in order to actually feel corporeal. And as we have established in one of the newsletters, Papyrus would absolutely smooch a ghost. So, yay to both of these, actually. Both of them are kind of in the running here. Now, before we get into full-on propaganda, I do want to acknowledge that there is a rather natural way that these two would meet, right? So, obviously, these two have a rapport, and because of that, these three have absolutely met, and there's absolutely a moment where these three could be in a get-together, and he is just the guy that just got invited because of Undyne, right? And that makes for a good first impression where obviously he fanboys first and then this guy gets so in love with the fact that he's a fucking doofus, right? That's endearing. I'm not gonna pretend it's not. However, I am still hung up on the fact that he knows so much more of this guy than he does of this guy, and that bothers me just a tiny bit. So, how do we fix this? Well, in comes probably the setup of this that makes me feel a little bit happier about this, right? So in this setup, there's already a lot less steps to actually get through. Rip to Alphys. Here is the reason why I like this setup a lot more. So we have this kind of closed bubble at first, where Undyne is using the dummy to absolutely beat the living shit out of it. So it's just ouch. But for Mad Dummy, it's not an ouch, because she absolutely loves Undyne. And the thing that I absolutely adore about Mad Dummy is that despite being absolutely fucking unhinged, she respects the relationship of Undyne and Alphys. You've noticed this with Caddy, where I really don't like it when a character is obsessed with something. Like if a guy is too obsessed with wanting to get like chicks, or when Caddy is like super overprotective over Noelle to a point where she gets like jealous of Susie and it feels a little bit too clingy to the idea. I love Mad Mew Mew for being disrespectful, and even though she absolutely is probably still sad about it, this puts her in this position where she still is in love with Undyne, but she has a healthier feeling about it, which means that if Papyrus gets in this whole setup because of the whole Royal Guard training, obviously, neither of these two know each other, and if they do, it's completely platonic from the very get-go because they don't know each other at all, and Mad Dummy is mostly focused on Undyne at the time, which in turn removes the thing that I disliked about Papiton, which is just this very heavy one-sidedness, and here that doesn't quite exist. That you could almost see it as one-sided because Mad Dummy obviously knows more about Papyrus by just being there, but she's also not giving a shit about him in the moment here. There's definitely some rapport being built because of the Royal Guard training, but at the same time, it's very much coming off from a place of friendship first, at best. Maybe just more of an acquaintance, really. But you see it, right? You can understand how these two would even know each other in the first place. It's not completely random, which is the thing that is insane about this, because it looks like a complete random rare pair, but the moment you sit down and think about it, it actually makes sense, and I'm gonna continue with this rhetoric. First of all, however, I do want to acknowledge something that these two kind of have in common, but prevents me from fully getting into it, which is the whole idea that these two are kind of insane, right? They're like, these two make elaborate, completely nonsensical traps for Frisk, and in general have this unhingedness to it. However, the way that these two are insane is a little different from one another. Papyrus is what I like to call being stupid unhinged, where it's just kind of part of his personality, right? He doesn't really try to hide this eccentricity about himself. It's just who he is, you know, the autism is just sparking out of him. Maybe it's more like ADHD, actually. His neurodivergence is very much showing. For Metal, on the other hand, it's more so showman insane. Like, it's definitely part of his personality, but he's a lot more low-key about it. Like, his actions are very exaggerated, his actions are very insane, but the way he acts is more so as a presenter of a TV show, so it's a lot more low-key. Which still could work. I absolutely think this could still be an interesting dynamic they could have, where one of them has a different flavor of absolute unhingedness. However, I'm gonna make a counterpoint to that, because we actually have a pretty good indicator of what kind of person Papyrus vibes with the most. Enter Undyne. Enter Undyne. Before I get into it, I want to make it clear that the reason why these two are not in the tier list is because I do not ship these whatsoever. They are best friends, and you can absolutely not do anything about it to change my mind on this. To give a very, very quick reasoning as to why, Undyne is so clearly lying to Papyrus in all the ways about how he can't be in the Royal Guard. So there's very clearly a sense of her viewing Papyrus as a child, right? So even though Papyrus definitely isn't a child, I feel like that's pretty clear when you actually, you know, have eyes. She does not quite respect Papyrus the way that she should. So obviously there's already like this imbalance in the dynamic. However, I still bring this up for the sake of shipping, because what this dynamic does instead, it establishes what vibe Papyrus goes with the most. Like, both of them are incredibly unhinged and keep it on their sleeves. Like, Undyne does not shy away from showing how absolutely insane of a person she is, and being able to just be angry about it 24/7, right? Yeah, we're gonna talk about Mad Dummy and Undyne later on in the tier list, but I'm gonna finish it off with the MadPap first, because she and Mad Dummy have a similar kind of unhingedness to them, where they are very clearly evil kind of unhingedness. Like, Undyne, it comes more from a justice place, but when you look at the dialogue, she absolutely just wants to throw down most of the time, so they definitely do match in energy as well. And another thing that these two kind of have comically in common is that both of them kinda hate this guy's ass, or at the very least do not get along with him the most. With Matt Mew Mew, it's more so as just a rivalry, and for Undyne, it's like just not liking his showbiz ass or something, which, to be fair, Papyrus is a bit more in tune with that. However, problematic height gap, hold on. So because of the indication that we have with Undyne, we know that Papyrus is more so in tune with people who are insane, and also have it on their sleeves and just not be unapologetic about it. Therefore, in terms of personality, or at least in chemistry with what Papyrus vibes with the most, Mad Mew Mew is absolutely part of this circle. There's also the thing that Mad Mew Mew is just checking off quite a few boxes that Papillon kind of does as well, but I feel like it works a little bit better here. Now, one, obviously, not a dog. Even though both Manaton and Papyrus have some characteristics that kind of make them a bit puppy-coated, Papyrus very clearly is not a fan of dogs. Cats, on the other hand, he seems to be a bit more in tune with, to a point where someone had asked him what to name their cat. Papyrus had absolutely no qualms with it, so he seems to be a bit more into the whole cat aesthetic, right? Another pointer that Mad Dummy has is that she is very much a combat person. So Manaton obviously does fight as well, but his whole thing is more so in the line of just being unhinged on the camera, right? So he's not actually meant to be a fighter, or at least it's not really his thing. Meanwhile, Mad Dummy is, you know, who used to be a dummy, so she absolutely loves to throw hands, which is absolutely great. This is a weird representation. Let me just do a fist real quickly. How did I get through art school? Oh my god. So that's already something that kind of connects them again. Another thing that kind of connects them, which also has a bit of a negative attached to it, but could kind of turn around to being positive again, is the fact that she is an action figure. A very big action figure, technically mostly a doll, but in the technical sense of what her body is, it's technically just a life-sized action figure, which we already established in the game, and with Papiton specifically, he would absolutely be into that. And now the only negative on this whole thing is the fact that she is an anime girl. Now, in case you missed the dialogue, in one of the phone calls, Papyrus does say that he isn't really into the whole anime thing, which actually connects him back to Mettaton a little bit. I hear you, it is definitely a negative. However, this also gives an opportunity for character development. Because what better way to finally get yourself to just sit down and give anime a chance than for your wife to be an anime girl, right? It would get rid of his prejudices, and I think this would work well. So in terms of compatibility, on Papyrus' side at least, this works incredibly well. Now there's also the question, would Mad Mew Mew be into Papyrus? Glad you asked. So something that Mad Mew Mew definitely likes about Undyne is the fact that she's also like really headstrong and all that, because they have so many things in common, right? Papyrus is definitely more naive, so that could be a bit of a negative, but it is exactly because these differences, that because he's a bit kinder and a little bit more hopeful, that this could positively influence on someone like Mad Mew Mew, who is mostly looking at anger and stuff to actually, you know, fuel her desire to like fuse with her body. So having Papyrus, who is just unabashedly himself and just wants to be kind, but in the most eccentric Papyrus way possible, where he still throws hands with a child, but let's ignore that. Just this positive outlook is something that someone as angry and emotionally disturbed as Mad Dummy would absolutely need and really appreciate and look up to, probably. So emotionally speaking, like in terms of like what her type is, it's getting a little bit outside of it, but again, this is a difference that could connect them together instead. That was a comic a while ago where Mad Mew Mew retreats back into the sink, which, by the way, why the fuck is she in the house? That also brings up a lot of questions. She must have like followed Papyrus home or something. You know, there is so many places in Waterfall she probably could have hid from the rest of the world, and now canonically speaking, of course, she's just there because that's where all the special things of the Xbox version were, or like the Switch, right? But in universe, she kinda doesn't have to be there. Unless she obviously knows Papyrus, so maybe she just followed him home because that's where she feels the most comfortable. Going back to the comic, there's a segment where Papyrus gives a very motivational speech about how to live your life, even if you're not completely what you want to be in the moment, because at this point you're just letting life pass you by, and it's in the kind of same weirdly mature Papyrus wisdom as it is presented in the game when you have this hangout. Like, Papyrus has these random moments where he suddenly has so much more introspection on things that I feel like someone like Mad Mew Mew would super appreciate and really, really cherish. And then there's, of course, the obvious propaganda that is that one newsletter where Papyrus just straight up feeds Mad Mew Mew cat food and has this interview where Papyrus just names her Papyrus. That's cute. That's adorable. This isn't something I am as obsessed with as things like Sorrel or something, but the fact that when you sit down and really analyze it, the fact that these two work a lot better than expected just has my respect, and I am converted. I absolutely support these two massively. Props to whoever figured this out. I support you. I ship it. I am part of the propaganda now.
And as a little update to Chapter 5, Pink's dating hub is the exact same one as the Papyrus state. I rest my case.